meaning we absorb plastic into our systems through our skin. When we throw them away, they feed right back into that vicious cycle we mentioned earlier. So, those are the three pathways through which plastic enters us: respiratory, dermal, and dietary. And what does it do once inside? It enters the bloodstream. Until relatively recently, about 15 years ago, plastic was thought to be biologically inert. And indeed, if you look at little plastic pellets, not microplastics, I'm talking about macroplastics, and drop them in water, they just sit there peacefully. They don't seem to interact with their environment all that much. However, once they are reduced to micro and nanoplastics, they enter the human body through those three pathways, make their way into the blood, and through the bloodstream, they infiltrate all the parenchyma, meaning the major organs, the kidneys, the liver, the heart, the arteries, the veins, the placenta, and breast milk, which was also a terrible discovery made by our team, and that too caused a major scandal. And what do they do there? Because we then asked ourselves the question, okay, I get it. They enter, they go there, they go into the organs, but what do they do to these organs? Well, the organs don't recognize them. Because plastic is a very recent material, it's only about 70 years old. It didn't exist before. Therefore, the body treats it as a foreign object. But the foreign objects that the body is familiar with, I'll keep this brief, otherwise we'll be here all day, are external antigens, or bacteria, viruses, fungi, and so on. So the body, or the cell, behaves exactly as if this foreign object were one of these biological agents it has known for millions of years. But that's not the case, because plastic is indestructible. It is not like those other agents. So what exactly happens inside the cell? We conducted some extraordinary research and discovered that the plastic makes its way into the cytoplasm. For those without a background in biology, let's just say that a cell is composed of a nucleus, where the DNA is located. And plastic, for reasons we still don't fully understand, does not go in there. And a cytoplasm, which contains organelles, little organs that ensure the functioning and life of the cell. So, the plastic enters the cytoplasm, stops there, and is surrounded by a membrane, similar to a cell membrane. In other words, the cell isolates it because it wants to destroy it, producing a series of enzymes and substances that the cell typically uses when invaded by microbes, viruses, bacteria, or antigens. Except that, unlike those natural elements, plastic is indestructible, as we were saying. Consequently, the cell is essentially subjected to chronic stress, and so it gets sick. What does it mean that it gets sick? It gets sick. Yet, the babies born in our hospital, whose mothers had plastic in their placentas or in their breast milk, were perfectly healthy. So what does getting sick actually mean? It means getting sick in the long term. That is to say, plastic inside the human placenta and breast milk, but let's stick to the placenta for now, doesn't only have immediate consequences. For instance, premature birth. The more plastic there is in the placenta, the more likely babies are to be born prematurely, unfortunately. Or the fact that these babies are smaller compared to babies exposed to lower amounts of plastic. But it also has long-term consequences. Namely, it alters epigenetic mechanisms, meaning this cellular programming triggers diseases that will manifest when that individual becomes an adult, say, at 40 or 50 years old. And these diseases are exactly the ones that are currently devastating, or, let's use a less dramatic word, burdening our world. These are the so-called non-communicable diseases: obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. What I am telling you has been thoroughly proven in laboratory animals, including mammals. That is, despite having zero caloric value, plastic causes weight gain because it triggers a shift in cellular energy production. We've seen that it colonizes the cytoplasm, right? We have conducted studies on this with dramatic photographs taken using scanning and transmission electron microscopes, where you can actually see the plastic destroying the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses that produce the cell's energy.